details of why Jay left the rental, and I seek to understand more about what Jay's state of mind was, obtain specific detail from people he spoke with, and I obtain an exclusive unheard account that may provide greater understanding of why Jay left the rental and refused to go back to it when he was clearly in trouble. But for now, let's go back to the ongoing search for Jay. It's the 30th of June 2024, and the police have organised a large-scale search.
Yesterday, they carried out a large search of the area. They wanted to create with as many people as they possibly could. They brought in voluntary fire service from nearby towns, civil guards, national police. They had a helicopter flying, and they also had other equipment in the area. However, nothing was found in that search, and now the decision's been taken to step down the search. The civil guards say that if new information comes to light and is brought to their attention, that they will investigate that as a matter of course. They also say that the family have been informed of the position now.
So what more do we know about what Jay did before he went missing? I go down to the strip where Jay had been the night before. So behind me is the club Papagayo. This is where Jay was with his friends partying at the festival. The two black men that he was with later on and earlier on in the evening did not come into this event. But the reason I'm here is I want to establish whether or not they've got CCTV, and to be able to view some of that CCTV. I'm told that there isn't any inside, but I've just spoken to the security guard in here who's confirmed that there is CCTV outside and certainly in the foyer, but I haven't looked inside, and he said, I can't tell you and I can't come in at the moment, you'll have to come back tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, which I will do. I also want to know whether, of course, the police have been here and wanted to view the CCTV or seize the CCTV, and that's really important because crucially I want to know how thorough they have been in their investigation, because there may well be other people within this club who have paid particular attention to Jay whilst he's been in here. So we can look at the CCTV, follow him around the club and see who else is there, see who else he talks to, see what else goes on. Interestingly enough, I went to a club just across the road, which is a club where we know Jay went to, and we know Jay was with the two black men. Interestingly enough, no CCTV inside, and you have to question why. Within a matter of a minute, less than that, 30 seconds of getting out of the vehicle, I was approached by a number of men offering me drugs, offering me cannabis, cocaine, straight away. And actually it is rife along the street. I've never walked down the street where you can smell cannabis to the degree that it is here. It's so prevalent, and there are police driving around. No one cares. No one cares at all. Having been to the rental location, which is high in the mountains in Masca, it's so easy to see how dangerous and treacherous it is. And given Jay was heavily under the influence of drink and drugs, this was clearly not a good combination and would have impacted his decision making. I want to hear from Brandon what he thought of the conversation with Jay that morning. When he talked to you, he said he'd already been walking 30 minutes, did he?
Yeah, so I spoke to him first at 21 minutes past 7.
Yeah.
And he put the foot down and he said, oh, I'm going to go. So he was in the house, he was sat on the bed, like on the settee, saying, oh, I'm going to go sleep or whatever.
And were you videoing this, or was this audio?
It was on Snapchat video.
Snapchat video, okay, yeah. And then what happens?
Then he put the foot, then he, like, I said, oh, right, I'm going now. I'll just let the answer off my head, or I could be all sick on the phone. He said, yeah, no worries. Then he was texting me, like, sending videos, which were, he was outside again. Right. I rang him, I said, what are you doing? He said, oh, I've set off walking, me lad. He was laughing with me at first. Then he sent me the location, and we realised that, oh shit. But in this time, I think he's already been on the phone to Brad.
Yeah.
Then I rung Lucy, and then Lucy rung him.
Right.
Then that was the last I heard from Jay.
Yeah. And when he was talking to you, he was walking, was he, in the last part?
Yeah, he said to me on the phone, I remember these exact words. He said, oh, I've gone off road in me, bro.
I've gone off road?
Yeah.
And that would have been shortly before he sent you the location, was it?
Yeah.
Right. So he said, I've got off road, and what, anything else?
No, not really that comes to mind.
Okay. And then after that, and then did you say to him, well, where are you? And then he sends a location?
Yeah, I had to tell him how to do it though.
Oh, okay. And he sent it to you on, was it Snapchat or WhatsApp? WhatsApp.
WhatsApp. It was on a WhatsApp.
Yeah, so did WhatsApp location. You told him how to do it and he sent it to you.
Yeah.
Jay also told Brandon that he could not go back to the rental.
But on the phone, he said to me, I've been walking already for half an hour because I tried to tell him to go back. And he said, oh, I've already been walking half an hour. I'm not going back. I don't want to go back. I just want to go home.
I want to ask Lucy more about her visit to the rental. She posted on the I Love Tenerife Facebook group on the 17th of June, so the day Jay went missing. Please can anyone help me with where this location is? My friend was here at 08:50 a.m. this morning after a night out and his phone is dead. He's got no food or water and I'm extremely worried. Thanks in advance. Attached to the post is a screenshot of the location drop Jay sent her. I've now spoken with the person that responded to Lucy's post. She says she picked Lucy up and took her to the Masca area and that they were able to identify it from the videos and pictures she had, and also it being the location of the pin drop. She totally believes that Lucy had no prior knowledge of the area. I continue speaking with Lucy and she tells me that shortly after identifying the rental in Masca, she speaks to a lady in a neighbouring property.
When I first spoke to that woman who lived next door, bearing in mind her brother owns the Airbnb, she said to me, I saw him at the bus stop and he said he was getting the bus, blah, 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 but never, ever, ever mentioned that she'd seen him walking up the hill. Like, she didn't mention that. I just said, what did he say when you speak to him? How did he seem? And then she was, like, really emphasising, like, because obviously there was the language barrier there, but she was really emphasising, like, the stomp. She was, like, looking at me instead, like doing a marching, thing, as if to say he'd left in a hurry. So I just think that's also weird. Like, he's left in a hurry with two knives down his pants, but yeah, he's been fine. So
who runs the drug scene on the strip? I spoke with a dealer on the promise of anonymity.
There's no one really. There's a lot of rules. Not rules, just Moroccan run. It's a Moroccans run the country. No one's like a big dog. It's not like gangland, no. It's like, you're just one of them. Everybody knows everyone. Everyone knows each other. You might see them come down for a drink at the bar twice and you think, everyone drinks in the same bars. It's not really rules, just like, you don't mess up with them Moroccans. There's no big trees over there. It's not a giant turf war, not like Pablo Escobar or something. It's just a normal island. No gangsters or mafia and all that. The only thing you have to watch out for really is like the luckies and shit that happens anywhere in the world. It happens here. If you sell drugs in a club and you get caught, they're going to throw you out. Same as back home in England, don't get caught selling drugs.
Now that I'm in contact with Quasim, I want to find out more about the watch and the pictures Jay took in the car as they headed back to the rental.
I never saw him nick a watch, or I never seen him with a watch. I mean, to go and sell it, yeah. I was on my way home, like, what? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm thinking, who's buying a watch at fucking 6:30 in the morning? Yeah, no. It's mad that Veronica Strip, like, about 9 watches go missing every night.
What's interesting is that just 2 months earlier, a burglary took place at the coffee shop that Quasim worked at, the Potter's Paper Cafe. The shop was ransacked and some of Potter's music awards stolen, along with a Rolex watch. The burglary was filmed and released online, leading to speculation that the stolen watch in the video was the same watch that Jay had referred to, taken from someone in his Snapchat video. Whilst we've been unable to confirm if this is connected in any way, it does seem very unlikely, as the burglars had already returned to the UK and filmed themselves smashing Potter's awards on the ground in London in view of the London Eye. As an investigator, I wanted to go to where Jay was last seen. Given that I don't speak Spanish, I had a translator with me. So behind me is the Airbnb where Jay was on the morning that he disappeared, and he was here with two black men. I've spoken to the lady that looks after this Airbnb, and she says on that morning she can't speak any English. He said bus, and she said 10 o'clock to him, and showed him where the bus stop is. It's very obvious anyway. And she says she then saw him walk off up the hill. Now, if he was going back to where he was staying, Los Cristianos, he would have walked that way. But for some reason, he walks off up the hill. She says that she didn't see him after that. That was it. He was alone, he wasn't carrying anything, and he definitely wasn't with anybody else, because she says that at that stage, the two black men she believed were inside asleep. I couldn't understand why she knew that with certainty, but she says that they were inside, and she says she didn't see him again. Now, that's quite interesting, because I have seen reports to suggest that she says she saw him again later, some 20 minutes up the top. She says categorically that's not true. She saw him once walk off, and that is it. She didn't see him after that. The Airbnb is currently being taken off, so you can't rent it. I did ask her about the blanket. This is the blanket that Jay has got over him in a Snapchat. And she says that she doesn't recognise it. And the Airbnb, she obviously goes in, looks after. She says she categorically doesn't recognise it. Now, there was a slight translation issue, so I can't be 100% sure that that's what she was saying, but the strong indication is that she said she doesn't recognise it at all. But the significance, of course, is that she only sees him once walk off. So does he walk off and then double back on himself and come back? We have had a new piece of information this morning that Lucy has said to Brandon, or Brandon to Lucy, we're not quite sure which way round, that when he left this Airbnb, he was scared and he took 2 knives with him. Why would he do that? And is that true? I've been speaking to a number of the friends and have been told of 2 significant pieces of information. I now need to speak to Lucy to see if what I am being told is true. Firstly, that on the morning of his disappearance, Jay told his friend that he was on a mission. And secondly, that shortly before he left the rental, he chatted with Josh, a friend he had only recently met, and sent Josh a video of him stood on the doorstep with 2 knives in his waistband.
The night before, when I was awake, before we'd gone home, and he'd messaged me saying, I'm going on a mission, blah, blah. And then I've gone home, tried to find him, blah, blah. Then I've ended up going home, gone to sleep, woke up to the call off Brandon in the morning, saying, oh my God, he's in the mountains. So I'm like, what? Rang him, blah, blah. Obviously, I can't go back there. But then in the meantime, this...
Can't go... Oh, yeah, so he's saying he can't go back to the rental, yeah?
Yeah, but I was just saying to him, go back to where you just come from, what can you see? Like, do you know anything about where you are? Blah, blah. And then, obviously, I didn't know about this straight away. Like, I'd heard snippets about him. But then, obviously, I've spoke to this Josh, and he's saying that he's come out, when he was smoking the cigarette, and he put the video on his story, he'd sent a video to this Josh, who we'd met on the plane.
Yeah.
2 kitchen knives out of the Airbnb and put it down his pants, and then lifted his top up and showed it to him, and he's like, oh, just in case anything kicks off, I'm like, do you know what I mean?
So he had 2 kitchen knives up his top in a Snapchat to Josh.
Well, from what Josh was saying, but he's not going to lie about it. But I've obviously not seen this. He had 2 kitchen knives with apparently orangey yellow handles that he took out of the apartment, down it like, obviously, well, his shorts, down his shorts, and with his t-shirt over.
And these are the apartment where he was with the black guys, or his own apartment?
Yeah.
The B&B, right.
Well,
so he took the knives from the B&B?
Yeah, so this is what I'm saying. It could all just be a coincidence, yeah, but I just think I'm going on a mission.
Josh says, basically, he was just stood on those steps smoking a cigarette, and he lifted up his top and showed me the 2 knives with like orange-yellow handles. I followed the path that the witness says Jay walked. So this is the road that the lady says that Jay walked up. You can see the road goes down, snakes around the corner, and then as you head down, you can see where the red roof is. That red roof forms part of the Airbnb, which is at the back of it. And then if you look down into the undergrowth away from that, there's no way that Jay has gone down there. And if he had gone down there, his body would have been found very quickly. It's full of cactus, and whilst it's steep, it's not dense, so you can see quite easily a body. And they will have put a drone over here. I've been to the very bottom as far as you can walk, where there is a derelict building, and no one's been in that derelict building. But of course the information is from the lady is that he walked off up the hill this way. On the day of Jay's disappearance in the evening, Lucy wanted to go looking for him. Contacting via social media, Quasim said he would pick her and Brandon up and take them to the area to look for him. Quasim described how that trip went.
He kept saying to me shit like, "Oh, bro, I need to get out to do a piss. I need to get out to do a piss." And I kept saying, "Mate, you're a fucking adult. Hold it in, like, do you know what I mean?" And then, but I never knew he was in such a position that because of the cat, he couldn't hold his piss in. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then when he got out to do the piss, he couldn't piss. Like, my mate was saying, "Bro, he's not pissing. Stop the car," like in some tunnel, because he was like, "Oh, stop the car." And then guess what? Because he couldn't piss. I'm getting now mad at my mate that I know these kids through. Like, one kid called Brandon. So I'm like, "Brandon, mate, what the fuck's your pal doing?" Like, do you know what I mean? Nah, yeah. And then I'm telling Brandon, "Oh, sort your fucking mate out and that, yeah." And then he's like, "Oi, Brad, mate, get back in the car." And then he's like, "No, mate, just you lot go." And then Lucy's like, "Brad, we're not leaving you in now, bro. Just let's go, Brad, let's go."
What Quasim said next was really significant, and I believe provides real context to a very number of important aspects of this case.
Oh, man, they're like, "Lad, fuck it." They're like, "That's like 2 bottles of Henny, lad." And then like they were just doing my head in. And then in the end, I was like to Brandon, "Look, Brandon, one of your mates yesterday walked away because he's fucked off with the cat and he went missing. Tell this fucking idiot, get back in the car. We're in a fucking tunnel." Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, them big tunnels that go under the mountains and that.
So let's just rehear that again.
And look, Brandon, one of your mates yesterday walked away because he's fucked off with the cat and he went missing.
I believe this is really significant new information. When Quasim said ket, he was referring to ketamine, and my information is that this drug was readily available and that Jay had definitely been using it. I have further information about the supply of ketamine into the country. In the UK, ketamine is a Class B drug, carrying a maximum of 5-year sentence for possession and 14 years for supply. I continue to investigate if drugs has any involvement in Jay's disappearance, and have been sent a price list for drugs that I can obtain in Las Americas. Ketamine, 1 gram, equals €50, and 3.5 grams, €140. Also, other drugs are listed for cocaine, 1 gram, €90, and 3.5 grams, €250. So Quasim says in the recording that Jay left the rental on the morning and took with him Quasim's ketamine. If you wonder why we've not heard this before, well, Quasim is not going to admit that he is dealing in drugs. His police statement, of course, made no mention of this. My intelligence, however, is that the rental location was specifically chosen so as not to bring attention to any illegal activity. I've remained in contact with Debbie since the first time I met her and remained supportive of her. She has shown great resilience even though she is heartbroken. As such, I've shared all the information I have found out along the way with her. As I said at the start, it is always so hard for a parent to hear things that are uncomfortable and perhaps show a loved one in a bad light. Debbie has not wanted me to release the information from Quasim that says Jay took his ketamine when he left the rental because, she says, it will bring further shame on the family. I don't believe this is the case. As an investigator, I believe it's vital that all credible information should be considered and investigated. And although I have shared this information with the Spanish police, I know it does not form part of the inquest, and I believe it should. Hence, why I've taken the decision to release it ahead of the inquest so it can be properly investigated. So if Jay did take Quasim's ketamine, this may explain why Jay had put 2 knives in his waistband for his own protection, and also very significantly why, having left the rental, he said to Lucy and Brandon that he could not go back there. This may also explain why he left in a hurry and did not wait for his phone to charge properly.
Yeah, I said to him, I said, "Wait, look, if you're ever going to listen to me ever in your life, you need to listen to me now and go back to that house. Like, your phone's going to die, and then, like, you're in the middle of nowhere, like, you need to go back." And he said, no, I can't go back there, I can't go back there, I can't go back there. But I don't...
And why did he...
I don't know, this is what I mean.
But you must have said to him, Lucy, you must have said to him why.
Yeah, I did. I was like, why? And he's like, I can't go back there. But he never actually explained why. It was a 2-minute phone call.
I've been able to speak with a person connected to the rental and have had confirmed that the knives that were seen in Jay's waist were definitely from the rental. I can't say with certainty if the knives were put back or they were taken. However, the rental contact does not believe any are missing. So I believe that this evidence gives rise to a reasonable belief that Jay was scared or worried, hence why he had the knives in his waistband. Also, if he did take Quasim's ketamine, why he left suddenly with only 1% battery, and told 2 of his friends that he could not go back to the rental even though he was lost, and certainly Lucy felt he was scared and worried. Shortly after the media started covering the disappearance of Jay, his mum Debbie started to get very nasty posts from people. People saying they had him captive, they know where he is being killed, even posting torture pictures online of other people claiming they are Jay. The internet became awash with people discussing Jay's disappearance, with groups set up and rumours, speculation and conspiracy posted. On the 12th of July, on the Jay Slater discussion and theory page, a number of different pictures were posted of a young male showing his naked upper torso with a collar around his neck and a nasty cut below his right eye. This picture was originally posted on an internet message board and said, "We got him as a slave in Morocco." We investigated this and can prove that a number of photographs were taken from the internet and pseudo photographs had been created to look like Jay. It was not Jay. In fact, the original unaltered photo and videos could be found online, some dating back as far as 2016. Debbie also got contacted on several occasions by someone claiming to be holding Jay hostage and threatening to harm Jay. Unbelievably, this person went on to send another text to Debbie the day after Jay's body had been found, claiming to have killed Jay and describing the injuries he had inflicted upon him. Like with the other horrible messages sent to Debbie, we investigated the sender and were able to trace that the individual was a 15-year-old schoolboy from Bournemouth. These types of vile messages are an offence under the Malicious Communications Act 1988, so we passed to the police our findings, including his full name, home address and school, as well as all the evidence we had collected. And what of the message that Debbie received shortly after arriving in Tenerife? It read, "Kiss goodbye to your boy. You're never going to see him again. He owes me a lot of money." This message was sent by someone called Malcolm from a British number. The sender of this message did not respond to any of our calls, nor sent any further messages. We have traced it to a disposable SIM. By the time Debbie arrived in Tenerife, her number had been widely circulated on flyers as the number to call with any information. This was one of a number of hoaxes, threatening calls that Debbie received from people whilst Jay was missing. I also received a number of abusive and unkind messages, like this one from Johnny Lee UK, which reads, all in capitals, "You're a dirty Freemason. You know Madeleine McCann and Nicola Bulley was a fraudulent missing person scam, and this is too." He sent this to me multiple times. And from Semino, which read, "What's the reward for anyone who finds the missing boy Jay? Because I have legit information." I replied, "There is no reward. If you have information that might help, please pass it on." He replied, "I need €600 and I will give you the exact location where he is. If not, you guys will search and not still find him." From the moment Jay went missing, his family clung on to every tiny piece of hope that he was still alive. 30 days after Jay was last seen, they got devastating news.
Spanish rescue teams in Tenerife say they found human remains in the area where British teenager Jay Slater went missing last month. Now, Spanish police say evidence strongly suggests that those remains are those of the missing British teenager.
This was, of course, heartbreaking news to the family. We do know that the night before the police announced having found Jay's body, there was a lot of search activity, including a helicopter directly over the area. Police were able to very quickly identify the remains as being Jay's.
A court in the Canary Islands has now confirmed that the body found in Tenerife is that of the missing British teenager Jay Slater, after identifying him from fingerprints. They added that his death was most likely caused by an accidental fall in a rocky area.
Having been to the area, I can tell you firsthand how treacherous and dangerous it is, and one has to consider that on the morning Jay would still have been under the influence of drink and drugs. The post-mortem examination, which was carried out by the very highly experienced pathologist Dr. Richard Shepherd, stated the following. Jay went missing on the morning of the 17th of June. His body was found 30 days later on the 15th of July. Had multiple abrasions across his body on his cheeks, arms, left thigh and right leg. There was a large laceration over the left front side of his head and a skull fracture due to the application of considerable force, which extended into the bottom of the brain. He also had a fractured pelvis. Dr. Shepherd concluded the pattern of injury is consistent with a heavy fall from a height, and his head injury was so severe that he would have been rendered unconscious almost immediately. However, he did add that with the decomposition changes, it's never possible to exclude a push. But there was nothing to suggest there was an assault, no gripping or holding or anything of that sort. A separate toxicology examination was carried out and evidence of the use of cocaine, ecstasy and ketamine were found in Jay's body. And a CT scan carried out in the UK found injuries to be consistent with a high and heavy fall with no sign of injury prior. I think debate and concern that not all the questions have been answered is right, but this is so often the reality with a sudden death. Sadly, in this case, Jay is the only person who has all the answers. I don't like to give airtime or a platform to people who come up with wild, unsubstantiated accusations or conspiracies which are not based on any evidence, but I've decided to address a few questions because I hope for some it will reduce speculation. Sadly, I know it won't for all, because there are people who will still see black as white, even when it's clearly not. So, could Jay have been pushed off the cliff he fell from? We know that when he left the rental and walked up the hill, he was alone. A totally independent witness confirms this. Also, when he dropped his location pin and was on the phone, he was behaving as though he was very much on his own. But significantly, for this to happen, it would have meant that someone had covertly followed Jay for about 3 hours after he left the rental. Another theory that's been suggested is that Jay was killed at the rental and then taken up to the location where he was found. The pathologist ruled out any prior injury to the fall. For this to have happened, it would have meant that the witness that saw Jay leave around 7:45 is lying, and that Jay's dead body was carried for around 3 hours. But most significantly, the call and pin drop that he did could not have happened if he was already dead. Another theory is that people have suggested that Lucy was at the rental all the time with Jay, Quasim and Rokas. We can confirm that Lucy was at her holiday address on the morning of the 17th because she made calls and was online from that address in accordance with her account. I want to address witness credibility. It's been suggested that the witnesses I have spoken with, both during my time in Tenerife and on my return, have lied to me about things, and yes, I know some have. I'm not naive about that, thinking they've all told me the truth. My skills as an investigator rarely means I take someone's word for it, seeking supporting information or evidence of that account. For many of the witnesses, they've given me access to their mobile phone chat and communication, which has allowed me to confirm some information. For others, I have cross-referenced accounts and information. Of the witnesses, some of the key ones have been very open with me, on the basis that I was not interested in what they were doing in regards to selling drugs. My focus was on Jay and what he's up to and who he met. Therefore, much of the information I've obtained around drug dealing has not been included in these podcasts. It is vital to remember that accounts will vary and change slightly, especially when dealing with young people who've been under the influence of drug and drink at the time. And actually, accounts that vary are a good thing to a degree, because when people have got together to plan and cover something up, they make sure their stories tally. Another question is, why did Jay go back with Quasim to the rental? And this is very simply answered. Jay was still buzzing at 6 a.m. from the alcohol and drugs, but his friends wanted to go home. So when Quasim told Jay he could go back to theirs and continue partying, Jay jumped at the chance. And the final theory I'm going to address that's been circulating is that Jay had a marker on him. We know that at 2:35 a.m. Jay sent a cryptic text to a friend saying, "They've got a marker on me." The friend replied at 3 a.m. with the message, "You need to go home, lad. You're off your barnet." Jay then replied, "You think I'm going home? You must be disabled." We know that at this stage, Jay was very heavily under the influence of drink and drugs, and it's highly likely some paranoia was present, because his friends say he was not making much sense and was being argumentative, which was very unlike Jay. Jay had no official marker on him, and yes, he was around people selling drugs, and he may well have upset people that morning due to his state, but for this to mean anything, it would have to have been a conspiracy with at least Quasim and Rokas to take him back to the rental to harm him. And then we are back to the same situation in regards to the series of events which strongly rules out any third-party involvement from the time he was at the rental. It's important for those who've become involved in covering the case to remember that being an investigator is a skill and takes years of working on and solving cases to get those skills. Relevance is key. So just because you don't know the answer to a question or someone has said something slightly different to someone else, the question you have to always consider and answer is, how is that relevant? The inquest into Jay's death has now opened at Preston Crown Court. Called at very short notice, this meant a number of the witnesses were unable to attend, and the hearing also heard that the police had failed to get Quasim and Rokas to attend to give evidence. All of this very frustrating and upsetting for the family. The inquest has now been adjourned to a date in the future for the police to try and secure witness attendance, and perhaps this time they'll give greater notice to them. So what is the conclusion? I've collected personal testimony, cross-checked information and collected direct evidence. Yes, Jay and those that he was with had consumed a variety of drugs and alcohol and active on the low-level drug scene. And Jay, whilst heavily under the influence of drink and drugs and in his own words on a mission, met up with a convicted drug dealer who, from all the intelligence I have seen, remains heavily involved in the drug supply scene. That said, Quasim has engaged with me, and using some other techniques, I've obtained more information direct from him, and I've been able to speak with all the key witnesses. The only person I would have liked to have talked to is Rokas, and whilst he may have useful information, his information would not change the outcome. Tragically, we know that Jay's death was as a result of a head injury, entirely consistent with a heavy fall from a height landing on his head. This is not challenged, nor is there any reason to challenge it. This is what the evidence tells us. So the conclusion reached, having done a thorough investigation, considered many theories and hypotheses, spoken to all but one of the key witnesses, is that Jay's death is a tragic accident with no third-party involvement.